So thanks so much, Becca. We've been chatting a little bit. So for some of you who've been on, you may have heard some of this. For those of you who haven't, thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to be able to co-host this with Becca for my Mom at Law platform community. I started the Mom at Law in 2017. And using my background as a workplace civil rights attorney, representing other mothers in the workplace, and relying on my experience as a co-chair for the Working Parents Committee for my local chapter of the State Women's Bar Association, and just being a mom and being a working parent myself. I was transitioning a bit in my career at the time, stepping a little bit back from legal work, becoming part-time, wanting to take on other kind of creative projects. And over the course of time, the Mom at Law has evolved into a very, I would say, like burgeoning platform where I have offered speaking and writing services, and even at times one-to-one career guidance services. And the goal always has been to kind of support working parents and the challenges. Sometimes, frequently that's been women lawyers, but it's been other professionals too. And my community is composed of all types of people from all across, the world, essentially. And so, I'm excited to be here today with Becca, who I met very early in my journey as the Mom at Law. We had very similar missions, very similar goals, very similar senses of humor. And so recently, we're friends. And so we were recently talking about how we could bring value to the Mom at Law community, to team up. And this came about. This is the result, this training that I'm so glad to share with members of my community who can learn from Becca. And, she's a wonderful career coach, Harvard trained, Harvard educated career coach, mom of two, business owner, and just someone who just has so much raw experience, as a working parent herself. And so, like we shared earlier, there will be, question and answer period at the end. So please, have your questions ready. And for now, I'll kick it over to Becca.
Yeah, Candace, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who's being here. I'll stop your video for right now, Candace. That way, if you want to turn it back on, you're more than welcome to.
No problem.
But I'll hide it for right now. And yeah, so we are here, and thank you so much for everyone from the Mom at Law community for being here for this free training, how to land a flexible job you love without spending hours scrolling job boards. I am so thrilled that Candace invited me to speak with all of you. I know that she loves her people so much, and I love her people too, because I understand where you're coming from. Many of you are working parents, and you're managing through the challenges and the opportunities and the joys of working parenthood. And all that being said, as grateful as I am for you to be here, there's another group of people who I think are equally as glad, if not more glad, that you are here. And those are your kids. These are those smiling faces smiling back at you who are ready to be just grateful, right? That you are taking this time to learn a better way forward in your career. You're doing it for you, but you're doing it for them. So I am grateful, they are grateful. And as we dive in here, I want you to let us know in the chat if this sounds like you. So are you someone who needs to make money to support your family? I know I am. I'm going to raise my hand there. Those kids' snacks are expensive, right? As well as so many other things that come into parenthood. I'm seeing Tara raised her hand, Carolina raised her hand. Yeah, this is what the realities of life. We need to make money to support our family. What else? Does this sound like you too? That you want to actually enjoy your work and show your kids that loving your job is possible, right? Leah's raising her hand for that. And we want and deserve to be happy at our work, right? We didn't grow up thinking that we are going to go be and do something that we hated every minute of it. We wanted to be the things that we wanted to be when we grew up because they were something that sounded fun and enjoyable. And we don't have to let that go. And we don't want our kids to have to let that go either. And does this sound like you too? That you need and want to be there for your kids? So whether that is getting your kids off the bus or shuttling them over to soccer practice, or being able to get them to doctor's appointments, go to their Cub Scout meetings. There's so many other things that we want to do with our families, right? So if this is sounding like you're in exactly the right place, because this is a community of people who want these things too, who want to make money to support their family, who want to enjoy their work, and they want and need to be there for their kids. This is not too much to ask for. It's really not. And you are not alone. There is a group of people here today who felt these exact same things. And then there's these faces up on the screen that I share with you because they also felt the same way. And these faces that are smiling back at you, another thing that they have in common is that they are now working in fulfilling and flexible jobs. These are people who have hybrid work schedules, people who are working remote, who have flex hours. You're also looking at faces of people who got significant pay bumps. We're talking like 40–50% pay bumps when they made a job change. Talk about paying for snacks, right? And they are overall just happier. They're happier in what they're doing right now. And what a gift is that to themselves and to others. So I share these faces with you to show you that you're not alone and that it is totally possible to make this change. So that's the big question, right? How are you going to land this fulfilling and flexible job? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The way I see it, there's two different ways that you could approach this problem of trying to find a flexible job you love without spending hours scrolling job boards. One way is to spend those hours scrolling job boards, right? So one way is like Sally. So Sally's trying to find a fulfilling job that she loves. It's flexible. So what she immediately does is that she jumps right over to her resume. And let us know if you've been there. And what she does is she looks at that resume and says, okay, I'll just update it with my most recent job responsibilities. And that's what I'll do. And then I'm going to, after I update that resume, I'm going to start scrolling through job boards because that's how you find a job, right? You go to the job boards, you just scroll, and you start firing off applications. And then here's what Sally does next. And here's why she gets frustrated. Because what she's doing next is crossing her fingers and hoping that one of these companies calls her back. Not only that they call her back, but that they hire her. And then she's crossing her fingers and her toes, hoping that it's better than her current job. And that's the kicker, right? You could spend all of this time submitting your resume to all kinds of places and then land in a job that's not actually a better fit. We don't want that. We don't want to feel like Sally here. So what's the other alternative? The alternative is that you can be like Franny instead. And here's what Franny does when she was looking for a fulfilling and flexible job. The very first thing that Franny did is that she got clear on what she wants and needs to be happy at work and at home. Both of those things are important. And Franny is super focused. She knows exactly what those things are. The next step that Franny takes might seem a little bit different to you. It might be a little bit different than what you expect. Sally might be more of a comfortable approach. This is a little bit different. Franny starts to interview companies instead of the other way around. Because what she's looking to do is to find the best match for her skills, the best match for a company culture that is the right place for her. That's what she's looking to do. And then Franny targets her pitch. She's not just updating her resume, she is targeting her pitch so that it's super obvious to these companies that she is the one that they have been looking for all along. Different approach, right? Sally and Franny are spending their time differently with their job search. So when you look at these two options, I know my visuals say it all here. Sally's a little frustrated. Focused Franny is feeling a lot more happy and confident. And that's what I want for you. You don't have to stay stuck spinning your wheels like Sally and hoping for the best. You can take a proactive approach like Franny, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that to move your job search forward in a way that actually works for your life. So for those of you who I have not met, my name is Becca Carnahan. Like we introduced at the beginning, I am so glad that Candace has me here with the Mom at Law community. And My job essentially is to help these stuck Sallys become the focused Frannies. That's what I do. And I am a career coach. I'm the CEO of the company Next Chapter Careers. And we specialize in helping parents land fulfilling jobs they love without giving up the flexibility that they need. And I have been around this career development block for about 15 years now, both at Harvard Business School and in my company, Next Chapter Careers. And on top of all that, I'm also a mom. So I'm a mid-career mom, like many of you. And as a mom, I have spent a lot of time at playgrounds and a lot of time at playgrounds chatting with other parents. And here's the conversation that often went down. I would be at a playground with parents and they would find out that I worked in career services because what do you do? What do you do? You have that conversation. And what they would often tell me, and this is kind of verbatim stuff, people tend to open up on playgrounds as your kids are kind of running around. They would tell me that they felt like they had to choose between finding a job they actually love and finding a job that fit their lives. They would hear that I worked in career services and just say, I really don't love my job anymore, or my job doesn't work for my life anymore. I don't even know where to go from here though. And that just really made me sad because we shouldn't have to make that choice. We should be able to be the parents that we want to be and the professionals that we want to be. So here's what I did. I put a framework around this. So all the years that I spent at Harvard Business School in career and professional development, I took those tools and strategies and the coaching experience that I had and built the Fulfilling Job Framework, which is what we're going to walk through here today. And what this framework is all about, it's a solution that I created. When I decided that having it all as a working parent wasn't actually too much to ask for. And we just needed a framework around this so that you know the steps that you need to take in order to reach that goal. And this is the framework that helped me and my clients kind of ditch that Sally approach for good, no more stuck Sallys, and helping people take control of their happiness and professional success as working parents. So if that sounds good to you, let us know in the chat if this is something that is resonating with you, that this is something that you want as well. And seeing some hands raised, which I love. Okay. So if you want to ditch this Sally approach too, it's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to start this by walking through the 3 mistakes that I often, very, very often, see mid-career parents making as they are approaching their job search. And they're going to sound similar to what happened with Sally. But not only are we going to talk about why or what these mistakes are, but why they are a mistake and how we can change up your strategy a little bit. So let's dive in, grab your pen and paper, because here's where we're starting to get down into brass tacks. Mistake number 1. So like Sally, what you might do when you are approaching trying to find this fulfilling and flexible job, this what feels like a unicorn, what you immediately start doing is you start updating your resume and that you spend hours on it, editing it over and over and over again. Here is why that is a mistake, my friend, because a lot of people will think that their resume is the key to their job search and that it should be the first step. It's kind of what we're taught, right? That you need a resume to find a job. But it's impossible to create a key that will open an unknown lock. And I'm going to give you a visual here in a second to show you exactly what I mean. So when you are creating a resume, what is the purpose of that resume? The purpose of the resume is to get you in the door, right? So you are essentially trying to create a key that's going to open the door to an interview or to a new job. But where people make a mistake here is that they're trying to use this resume key to open up all kinds of doors. They don't know what's behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. They're just firing off this resume. They're creating this resume and then firing it off to a bunch of jobs. And they don't actually know what the pain points are of that company. They don't actually know what are the words that they should be using that would help a company understand that you are the right fit. So all of those hours that you spent on your resume, if it's not tailored towards a specific role, those unfortunately are hours wasted. We don't want to waste your time. On top of all that, I mentioned it's hard to know like which key is going to fit in which lock here. Here's what I see happen too, is that when you create that key, and let's say by chance, you create a key that opens up a lock, but you haven't done the work to figure out what's behind the door. You might have just spent some time, a lot of time, working on that resume to open up a door to a house that stinks. And you don't know. You didn't have the information beforehand to determine if this house, this new job, was the right fit for you or not the right fit at all. Okay, well, we don't want that. We want you to have more information so that you can build your key in the right way and open up a door to something that you actually want. So when you are clear about the door you actually want to open, then you can create the resume that gets you invited in the door. That's the first mistake. We're not going straight to the resume. We really need to get clear on the door that you want to open with that resume. Okay, mistake number 2. And this is maybe perhaps just as common, if not more common, than the resume key mistake. And this mistake is that people believe that the more jobs that they apply for, the better chance they will have of landing a new role. Rule of numbers, right? That's what people think. We just need to send off a bunch of applications and see what sticks. Here's where the trouble comes in. A quick look on LinkedIn. So let's say you put the kids down to bed and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to look for my new job right now. So I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to scroll. I'm going to be looking for a new job. That could take you you go down a rabbit hole. It could take you 3 hours of scrolling and maybe finding a couple good jobs. It's a lot of time that you just used at the end of a long day. And then what happens? Then you need to apply to those jobs that you found, right? They're not just going to show up here. You need to apply. So every application could take 30 to 90 minutes of your time. That's more time added on to this process. So you spend a bunch of time searching, you found a couple jobs, you were looking for that resume, you were writing a cover letter, maybe filling out the online application. Takes some time. This is the real kicker. All of that time that you just spent scrolling job boards and submitting cold applications, it's not the best use of your time because 80% of new jobs are actually found through networking and referrals. I'm going to say that again, 80%. And I know that number is going to sound bananas to you. Rebecca, that can't possibly be right. Actually, if you go and Google search this afterwards, you're going to see a lot of sites say it's actually 85%. So I'm hedging a little bit here at 80 because I've seen studies range from around 75 to 85. So we're going to go with 80. That's a lot of jobs. So if you are spending 100% of your job search time on cold applications, you see where I'm going with this, right? That's not going to be as most effective because 80% of jobs are found through networking and referrals. We need to change the strategy. Not only do we need to change the strategy just based on numbers, but it's also based on your confidence. I'm going to show you this, my favorite little chart that I do here to illustrate this. So let's say that you are scrolling through the job board and you find one job that seems like the dream job. Okay. It takes you a little bit of time to find that job and a little bit of time to submit the application, but your confidence is still pretty high. You haven't submitted a job application in a while, but it seems like a good fit. So you're going to go ahead and send off that application. And then what happens? Because we know 80% of new jobs are found through networking and referrals. What happens? Maybe you don't get that job. Maybe you don't get that job not because you are not a fabulous human being and a great fit for the role, but because they already have 6 different people who have reached out to them and built relationships, and there's great networking that's been done. So you're not considered for the role. Other people are ahead of you. So what happens then? Okay, you don't know that. You just know that you got rejected and you feel really sad. So your confidence starts to sink a little bit and you start to spend more time submitting job applications. Like, well, I can't put all my eggs in one basket, so I better put my eggs in a bunch of baskets. And these other jobs seem pretty good, so I'm going to submit for these too. Taking more time, your confidence is shaking a little bit. What happens then? For some of these, you are not going to get reached out to. For some of them, you are going to be rejected. So there's some radio silence, there's some rejection, doesn't feel good. And again, this is not because you are not fantastic. It's because there are so many other ways that people are finding these opportunities. And if you're applying to jobs that have been up on the job board for more than 2 weeks, they probably already have a bunch of other cold applications that they are considering. So there's a lot of external factors here, in addition to making sure that you have a tailored resume, that perfect key that's going to fit in the door. But your mind isn't saying that to yourself, but your mind is saying, I am not a good fit. I need to broaden my scope. I need to consider all kinds of jobs because who's going to hire me? And I can say that to you with confidence because I know I've heard the same thing from folks all the time. And so what happens is that you spend more time submitting applications. Your time is going across the bottom here. This is increasing while your confidence is decreasing, and you just start sending off applications for okay jobs, which means your enthusiasm for the position is way down. Your cover letters end up being meh at best, and your resume isn't targeted. So yikes, you start not hearing back at all. You start having that radio silence, those no's, and you are just start to get in a panic a little bit, right? That you've spent a ton of time and you're just going to start firing off applications to whatever because your confidence is so low that you don't think that dream job is even possible anymore. So let me know if this sounds like you, because it sounds like a lot of people that I know who have gone through the same process. And we don't want this process because I don't want you to be losing all of your time and all of your confidence. Big takeaway here, unfocused, over applying is not the best use of your valuable time. Plus it can tank your confidence. I know you're busy as a parent, you don't have a lot of time. So we should be using it in the best possible way. And that's where we're going to talk about making connections and networking as a really key part of this strategy, as well as being super targeted towards the roles that are a good fit for you. Okay, I'm getting a little jazzed up here, as you can tell. This is the stuff that lights me up. And mistake number 3 is a biggie. And mistake number 3 is that you assume it's too late to change careers without going back to school. So you need to stay on your current path. And this is something that Candace and I have talked about for sure, about do you need to stay on your current path if that's the education or the experience that you have? And my answer to that is going to be no. But I need to explain to you why that is my answer. Because first of all, there's 2 key components here. One is you as the individual. The second is the job market. Let's start with you. So you as a person, you made a choice of what to study or do for a job at age 18. But your life has changed a lot since you were 18, right? You have kids, you have new interests, you have different needs and different goals. I know I am quite different than I was at 18, and I am sure that you are too. And so my best way to visualize this is if you wouldn't let the 18-year-old version of yourself who perhaps didn't have kids or has different needs and different goals, if you wouldn't let her choose the jeans that you're wearing right now, then why would you let her choose your career choices? Why would you let her make your career choices? You wouldn't, right? You're not going to let a teenager control the rest of your life. I mean, teenagers are great, but our brains have changed since then. Our life has changed. So if you don't want to be wearing your low-rise boot cuts anymore, and you'd rather some high-waisted stretchies like I have on right now, then let your adult self make these choices and make a shift. Give yourself permission. And like I mentioned, not only have you changed, the job market has changed too. And it's changed in a couple really important ways. And one is around the different jobs that actually exist. So when we were kids, right, we had a pretty limited view of what jobs were out there. And it's expanded a bit since then, but it's not expanded as much as it could be. So let's pretend that there are these people who started out in the jobs that we knew, and maybe much like you. And then they started going out into the world, and they started seeing problems. You have the teacher who saw a problem about how parents and teachers were able to communicate. You saw a doctor who saw that, I wonder how we could treat patients differently. There might be a chef who's working in a restaurant and you're like, I wonder how we could make home meals have the same experience. They're seeing problems out in the world. Here's where this gets good. These people started to see problems and technology started to change and the world started to change. And then they started to build all of these new companies and even brand new industries that started to pop out because people saw problems that they were trying to solve. And those problems that they were trying to solve, they need people with your existing experience and education to help them solve those problems. I'm going to give you a couple examples here to illustrate this. So I talked about teaching and education to begin with. The whole ed tech industry didn't exist to the scale that it's in right now. Those businesses, they need teachers who understand the classroom, because maybe they were built by an engineer and maybe a teacher together. They got together to try to solve this problem. Now they need more teachers. They need instructional designers. They need people who have a sales background to come in and help this company. So you can think about how your background can relate to a new burgeoning industry or type of company. So that's one example around ed tech. Let's talk about sales here for a second too. Let's say you have some experience in the sales function, but you want to change industries. Good. You don't have to have gone to school for consumer packaged goods sales. You don't. You have your sales experience that can translate from one industry to another. I love seeing people who were former military working for veteran-owned businesses, making that switch. Former athletes going and working for sports businesses. There's ways that you can tie together your past experiences to be a perfect match for these new industries and companies. Your transferable skills are real, my friend. They are very, very real. We just need to identify them. Figure out what it is that you love to do. What are the skills that you want to use? And how can you relate that to these new industries and companies? So that's one. There's new industries, there's new companies. The second part of the job market is that, and this isn't going to sound new to you at all, because you're going to know this, what has happened over the past couple of years. There has been so many ways that people have changed how they work. So remote work has been around for a while, but it is so much more of an option now than it was even 2-3 years ago. There's so many more remote opportunities, so many more hybrid opportunities that create more flexibility. So we talk about fulfillment and the skills that you want to use and the environments that are a good fit for you. But we also want to talk about the flexibility. So having remote work or hybrid work, or even companies that are just much more mindful about how they are working with their employees. So that might be meeting free times or flexible hours or more of a results-focused culture. I've seen examples of all of these. So by results focused, I mean more focused on how you're able to do your job rather than kind of butts and seats time, like FaceTime time. How can we identify those companies who share these values, who are really focused on flexibility, so that you can thrive as an employee in these environments? These are all exciting, good things, that their industries have changed, the way work is being done is being changed. This is all good news for you. So big takeaway here is that you are not starting from scratch here, my friend. You don't have to go back to school. You are starting from experience. You're starting from experience that you built from your education, but also from your life experience, from your professional experience. I firmly believe that for many cases, you don't need a new degree. And sure, maybe there's a class that you'll take down the line because you want to, but you don't need to go get a whole new bachelor's degree in many, many cases. What you need is to figure out how you're going to pitch your targeted transferable skills to a company that would be an amazing fit for you in this next stage of your career. These companies need what you have to offer. Oof, 3 mistakes. Let me know, did those sound familiar to you? Have you made those mistakes in the past? And if so, there is no shame in that game, because a lot of people have, and I'm seeing people's hands raised here, and we don't have to do it this way. We can change. So that's what, let us know here. Let us know. Are you feeling like you can, based on the information that I just shared, that you can land a fulfilling and flexible job using this framework? And some people might be saying, yes, 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 I'm jazzed. Let's do this, Becca. Some people might be saying, I'm not sure. Tell me about the framework. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to walk through this 4-step framework to help you get from Stuck Sally to a focused Franny. Let's dive into that. Here are those 4 key steps. I told you I'm going to share a lot of information here. We're throwing a lot at you. So these 4 steps: uncover, craft, explore, plan, and pitch. That's what we're going to do. These are the 4 steps of your effective and efficient job search. And this is the only framework you're going to need. You're going to use this once to make a change right now. You're going to use it again if your life's changed in 5 years or your interests have changed. You're going to follow the same framework. And it works. Works every time. So these 4 parts, again: uncover, craft, explore, then plan and pitch. Let's walk through each one of them to show you exactly what I mean. So number 1, what are we uncovering? What is the archaeologist in us? What are they doing? We're trying to uncover your career sweet spot. And the reason we start here in this framework is that if you don't know what you're looking for, it's impossible to find it. It's like jumping in a car without your GPS and with no clear direction of where you're going, just like hoping that you get somewhere. You will, but if you don't know where you want to go, you're not going to get there. You have to be able to set your direction. So that's what we do with the career sweet spot. And here is what this career sweet spot looks like. The career sweet spot is the overlap between your passions, your skills, and your value add. 2 of these you're going to say, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. The third one, you're going to be like, I don't know what you mean. So let's break this down a little bit further. Passions are the things that you love, right? And you might be telling me, Becca, I don't know if I have passions. I am very busy. I have a lot of stuff going on, but I promise you that you do. And I'm going to give you some examples here in a moment. Skills. This is going to come really obvious. What are you good at? But not only what are you good at, but what falls in the middle of that sweet spot are the skills that you want to use. Because then you're going to be even better at your job if you're using the skills that you want to use. And you're going to be happier at your job. Then this third one, where people look at me and say, value add. What do you mean by that? So what I mean by that, essentially, is who's going to pay you to do these things? Who's going to pay you for the value that you add to their business? So this might be certain types of companies from a size or stage. It could be the clients that they serve. It could be industries. There's lots of different ways that you could add value based on your experience, the types of people that you've worked with in the past, your education, lots of different ways that you could add value and people would want to pay you for the value that you add. Let's do a little example here. This is very simplified, but this is the same process that I work through with people in the Career Clarity program, where we go through these different parts of the framework. So in this example, when someone looked to uncover their passions, a couple things bubbled to the top. They realized that they were super passionate about health and wellness. It is something that has really evolved for them over time. They have seen how important health and wellness is, and something that they love. The other one was something new to them, that they didn't realize that they loved storytelling. And they found this through a series of exercises that we did when they realized the themes of what they loved. So they loved reading fiction stories in particular. They loved dramas on TV. They loved going online and going onto Instagram, not because they wanted to see a bunch of pretty pictures, but because they loved actually looking at stories and seeing people telling about their lives. That became a passion area for them, something that they wanted to have more of in their life. From a skills perspective, the same person did other exercises to break down what are their key skills, what are the skills they want to use. And what bubbled to the top were writing skills and creative problem solving, thinking outside the box about how they were going to put these different pieces of a puzzle together. And they had a lot of other skills too. We're just going to use a couple examples here. And then this third one here around the value add, how are they adding value? They can add value because they've worked at smaller stage companies before. So startups or growth stage companies, That's where they could see themselves adding value. And perhaps also companies serving parents because they know that market really well and they could add value by knowing the customer. So when you look at this model, then you can start to find the overlap between these different areas. How about a startup in the health and wellness space that needs someone who can use their strong communication skills in a marketing capacity? That's just one example. Perhaps a company that is serving parents and needs help telling their story in a sales capacity by reaching out and building partnerships, getting creative about how they're building partnerships with other companies or with other businesses in the local area. We can use all of this data and brainstorm ideas together on what could be a good fit for you. So I get really excited about this because I think when you look at it in this way, it changes how you think about targeting your job search. So the big takeaway here is that if you want a fulfilling job, you need to know what fulfilling looks like to you. And that sweet spot model is a great way to help you figure that out. What are the things you love? What are the skills that you have? And who's going to pay you to use those skills? I want to share a story with you. I also love storytelling about my friend Colleen here. And Colleen is a member of the Career Clarity Program, and she is a mom. And when Colleen came to me, she said that she was feeling so frustrated because she was ambitious. I'm going to share what she said here. She was ambitious and driven, and she was also a mom who wanted to be there for her daughter. And she wasn't loving her job anymore, and she wasn't sure why, and she was just feeling a little bit lost. And she didn't know what she wanted next, but she knew that what she had wasn't it. So Colleen went through this process, one step of four, as you'll see here, of uncovering her career sweet spot, figuring out what are the skills that she wanted to be using the most, realizing that was missing. That was a missing piece of her current role, in addition to some of the other criteria that we'll talk about next. And once she was able to get a clear picture of the skills that she wanted to use and the environment she wanted to use those skills in, then she could pitch herself so well. And Colleen got real good at this and found an amazing position through networking, I will add, that allowed for remote work. She was had Fridays off in the summer. The pictures that she was sending me were amazing. And she ended up receiving a 48% pay bump too, when she switched companies to something that was a better fit for her in a more ideal role and a more ideal company culture. That's the stuff right there, right? That's what uncovering your sweet spot can help you do. Be able to target your pitch most effectively to get to that next stage. So what's step number 2 here, my friends? We're going to start crafting. And I don't mean with scissors and paper, although you certainly can. In this, we're going to be crafting your career criteria. And the reason why we're doing this as step number 2 in our framework is that if you don't know what you need, you won't know how to ask for it. So first we were trying to figure out what our target is. But in the second piece, we need to know what you need so that you can ask for it in your job interviews. You know how to ask good questions in your networking conversations. You know how to job craft within your existing role. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to explain what all of that means here. But the big takeaway is that you need to know what you need so that you can go seek it out. How are we going to do that? Career criteria is, again, one of my favorite things about that we do in the Career Clarity Program. And what we do here is break down these key different buckets of potential criteria that you might need in this next stage of your job. And we get really clear on these 5 different categories and writing out career criteria so that you have basically a map for what you need and want next, and a really powerful tool for evaluating companies and opportunities to make sure that the house doesn't stink. If you go back to our example earlier, we want to make sure we know what's behind the door. So these 5 categories that we go through in the Career Clarity Program are around needs. So this is logistics around what flexibility means to you, what is the salary that you need, and a bunch more pieces of needs here as well. Motivators, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What inspires you to be doing this work? Who are the people that you want to be surrounding yourself with? What does a great manager look like to you, or a great team? Who are the clients that you want to be serving? Who are these people from a professional setting and personal setting that are playing into this decision for you? How about your day-to-day? So we went through the exercise of figuring out what skills you wanted to use and in what purpose. That's what's going to show up here in your career criteria with your day-to-day. And then future self, we can't leave future you off of this model here. We need to figure out what are some of your hopes and dreams and goals, and how can we make sure that we're continuing to work towards them as you are making this next step in your career. So we go through exercises on all of these to figure out what's the real meat behind all of this, because for many of you, you've had a lot of these thoughts, right? But they're a bit more jumbled. You're like, oh, like this isn't working at my job, or this isn't working. We need to figure out what you do want. We know what's not working, but let's kind of find the positive opposite of that. What is it that you do want, so that you can take these jumbled thoughts and make them into clear, actionable statements about things that you can go after in this next chapter. Then, once you have your clear, actionable statements, you can have a more targeted and focused job search, and you can ask better questions. If you just say, I want more flexibility in my job, okay, but what does flexibility look like to you? I want to be able to work remotely 3 days out of the week, and the other 2 days I want not to be tied to my desk because I need to be getting the kids off the bus at 3:30, and I want to make sure that is an important part of what I'm doing next. Okay, that's much clearer, right? And then in informational conversations, or even in your research, you can be identifying companies that meet that criteria. So much better, right, than just hoping that it's better. Big takeaway here is that with clear criteria, you can ask clear questions, make clear requests, and make clear-headed decisions. You can trust yourself more when you have your clear career criteria as your evaluation guide. And let me introduce you to Alex, who was the queen of making really clear career criteria. And Alex has one of my favorite career transitions. And she was living in New York as a fashion designer. She moved across the country with her family and needed to make a change, started looking for other fashion jobs, but something wasn't clicking. When we started working together, and she went through these same framework here, she found actually that her passions were lying elsewhere. It wasn't fashion for her anymore. She still liked it, but she had been part of a community garden in New York. And this whole idea of community gardening and people getting to learn more about the earth and sustainability, that's what was driving her, as well as being able to use her communication skills that she used as a designer, but she wanted to use more of them. So what is Alex doing now? She is a director of a school farm in Colorado. She has built this entire program. She's very entrepreneurial. She has, since that time, it's a very flexible job too. She can ride her bike to this farm. She has had her second baby. She has job crafted in this role to make it ideal for her. And this is such a flip from kind of just sending out a ton of applications to maybe some fashion jobs, to making a really clear, targeted list of criteria, and then using the networking tools that we're going to talk about here shortly to find that role, to build that role for herself. So I just love Alex's story. If you're looking to make a big mid-career switch, it's not just function, it's not just industry, it's multiple levers, you can do that too. Alex did, and you can too. Okay, now we're going to move on to exploring new paths forward. So you have a lot of data, right? Where are we going to go from here? We need to identify other job options. They are out there. You just need to know how to look for them. So let's do that. And we're going to do a kind of a 3-step process to identify those other options. One is research, one is learn, and one is evaluate. And let me give you a different visual here, because I think it's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to basically be taking a hypothesis of some ideas around your career sweet spot, around things that were popping up with your career criteria. And we're going to start by trying to test that hypothesis and turn it into a theory. So we're going to start with some research and identifying companies that are within that career sweet spot, within the industry that you identify. within the size of company that you identified. There's some great tools out there. You just need to know how to use them to be able to pull together your target list of companies. Then we're going to learn about these functional areas, these companies, and we'll do that a lot through talking with people. And that's something Alex is also phenomenal at, and something that we talked about a lot is how do you identify the right people? And we do all this in the Career Clarity program too. How do you identify the right people and what questions you're going to ask to build relationships, but also to learn more if this functional area or company is the right fit for you. And then we want to evaluate all that information. So you've gathered so much good data from your research and from your conversations. Now let's go back to your criteria and test it out. Is this a match or not? If not, that's okay. Something else is going to be from another conversation that you had. We just have a tool that's helping us to evaluate, not from what your cousin Jan or your neighbor George wants, but what you actually want. With this process, you can go from a hypothesis of some ideas to a theory, and then going into the plan of how you're going to pitch yourself and make a plan for your job search strategy to get there. Takeaway for this one is that knowledge is power. When you're able to gather more information and then evaluate it, that's where it gets good. You are going to make your job search so much more targeted. And Hillary was amazing at this too. Hillary's also a mom. You're going to see a lot of parents showing up on the screen here, and a project manager, and another one who has made a huge transition. Hillary was a musician for many years, and she had to make a change in her career. Something came up from health-wise, she had to make a change. And she didn't know where to start. So we used this framework of figuring out her career sweet spot, what are the skills she wanted to use, crafting her career criteria, and then getting really good at exploring. And Hillary used her research skills to be like, okay, who are the companies that would actually meet some of these other interests that I have? And now she does really, really cool work organizing projects, putting together all the different pieces because she was good at that. Even as a musician, she was good at that, pulling all the different pieces together. And then she also had an interest in genealogy. So she was able to find a company where she was able to tap into that interest and use her project management and pulling all the pieces together skills to actually craft a brand new job that didn't even exist. So this is the stuff that's possible, you guys. You can make a change from a completely different industry. You can even create a new job that doesn't exist anymore. I hope that sounds exciting to you because for Hillary, for Alex, like this stuff was nerve-wracking. For Colleen, this was nerve-wracking, but they did it and they got to the other side. And I know that you can too. So let's get to this last part, right, of planning and pitching. And what we want to be doing here is being really proactive and intentional about your pitch. So we talked about data and how you want to take all of this new data that you've gathered from your exploration, from your career criteria, from your career sweet spot, and make a really proactive plan and have a specific pitch so that you are telling people, here's why you need me, not just please take me. You want to make it super clear to them. So how do we do that? We can do that in 3 different ways. One is through job crafting in your existing role or creating a new role at a different company. One is through your job search and how you're going to be spending your time in your job search to find the right roles. And one is around your branding. So you see, we left the resume here for last. It's still important, but we need to know what it is you want to do so that we can have control over these pieces. I know I like to have control as a parent. There's a lot of things that are outside of our control. But when you do, you feel so much better. Your confidence is way higher. And you know that you're not just spinning your wheels and hoping for the best. You're taking control over these 3 aspects. And here's another visual to kind of think about that data. All this different data, your career sweet spot, your career criteria, your job market, your exploration data that you have pulled. You can think about how you're going to craft your current job to be more fulfilling and flexible, either for the short term or the long term. I have helped people do this too. They're like, wow, what I really need in my current job is to be able to work on a different type of project or work with a different team or change the flexibility of my job, but I don't know how to pitch that. Good. Now that we know what you want, let's go get it. We can craft a specific pitch to JobCraft. And then for your job search, we're going to take that same data, but then also layer on the job market data. We know what's out there. We know what companies are doing well right now. We're going to gather that data through some good research tools, and then use your job search time most strategically, having networking conversations, identifying companies, building out that target list so that you're not just applying and hoping that something lands. And the last part, we're going to take this same data and we're going to market you with standout application materials. So what I mean by that is a really targeted resume, a LinkedIn profile that makes it really clear as to what you're looking for next. We can't do any of this stuff until you know where that sweet spot is, until you have more information. So let's use your job search time to gather more information, then you can plan and pitch in the best way. Overall here, I want to put you in control of finding the right job and not just any job. Okay, you could just find any job, but we want to find the right one for you. And this process helps you do that. And Olivia is another story that I want to share with you. I want to introduce you here to Livy. And she's fabulous. She is a mom. She's a new director of biology. She was an assistant professor actually for many years, but just something was missing. She wasn't loving where she was as a professor. She wanted to be focused more on less, like she liked the research, but wanted to create some tangible results with that as well. There was just some missing elements with her career criteria as stacked up against her current position. So she went through all of this process and she was feeling really, really stuck. She didn't know what her alternatives were. But once we started to explore the different alternatives, she was able to target her pitch so well that Livy ended this within a few months of 3 different job offers. Yep. And accepting her dream job, negotiating for the best possible salary. She's working a remote job with a higher salary, and she had 3 different job offers, and she wasn't applying online. Not a single one of these was she applying to just a random job online. She was networking and building relationships and being targeted in her pitch. So she just did amazing, amazing work, but it's not amazing as in like, oh, it's magic. No, it's amazing as in she went through these steps very specifically. And when she followed the steps week by week, like she says, she was able to land this result. So my friends, we just covered a lot of content. And if you take away one thing from all the content that we just talked about, I want you to remember that you can make a mid-career change and find a new flexible job that you love. And the biggest question, honestly, is that how are you going to take this framework and apply it to your life so that you can launch an efficient, successful job search that lands you in a job you love? That's what I want for you. So I want you to look at this framework and say, okay, how am I going to use this same framework for my job? And you can stay in the stuck Sally approach. You can go back to what you were doing before and kind of spinning your wheels a little bit. But I really, just because I like you, honestly, I don't want you to feel stuck. I want you to feel more like a focused Franny, that you have more control over this process and that you are fully in the driver's seat of how you're going to move forward in your career. Which one sounds better to you? Let us know here, because I know for me, a focused Franny approach just brings people more happiness, more calm, more control. And that sounds super appealing as a parent. So I firmly believe that if you are here today, it is time for you to stop hoping to find that flexible and fulfilling job and start doing the right work, not the endless scroll, but the right work in order to get there. And you can do that by following this framework and taking the guesswork out of landing that job you love that fits your life. That's what we want. So I am super, super excited to share with you that if this is all sounding good to you, if you are saying, yes, I want to follow this framework, I want to have these exercises and these tools to make this happen, the Career Clarity Program enrollment is open now. And Candace is going to share the link with you so that if you want to join us and get support in doing this work, it is here for you. I am here for you to help support you through this process. And let's just give you a bird's eye view of what you'll have access to if you decide to join us within the Career Clarity Program to follow this framework. The first part is exactly that framework. So we walk through, using this method, we walk through with videos, exercises. So these are like 15-minute videos that you can do during nap time for the kids, do one at night, after bedtime, squeeze something into your lunch hour. You can squeeze this into small moments in your day. Because I know that you're a busy parent, we make this digestible. And through these different modules, they all have these short videos and short exercises so that you can uncover your career sweet spot, craft your career criteria, expand that view of what's possible, and then give you a strategic action plan and a way to pitch yourself to land your ideal role. This is very customized to you. We're not going to be pushing you into a job that you don't want. It's about finding the ideal job for you and your life. And you can do that using these modules and these video exercises, which is just awesome to be able to do that on your own time. And then, but the other piece of it is that you have this on-demand coaching, basically coaching in your pocket here, but you also have coaching support in the Career Clarity Program. So I think I've said one of my favorite parts many times, but again, this is one of my favorite parts, that we have group coaching as part of the Career Clarity Program as well. So through this program, you'll have access to up to 6 months of group coaching calls. You might have a new job within 3 or 4, or 2, I've seen even. But you continue to have this support if you need it. We are there for you if you want to take the process a little bit slower to fit your life, or use those additional calls to help you onboard into a new role. The most important thing to remember here is that these group calls, I am there live answering your questions. You also have support from these other amazing mid-career parents from a variety of different backgrounds to share their support, both in person like this on Zoom, but also in the chat. There's so much great support and connections that happen in these group calls. So it is a supportive community and also a place just to get your direct questions answered. And they're small groups too. If they get too big, I make more of them to make more group calls, because I want to make sure that you get the one-on-one time that you need. So as of right now, we have 4 different calls you can call into each month. You can call into multiple calls if you want, but we do try to keep them at a little bit a smaller size so that you can get your questions answered directly. And on top of that, this is a really wonderful resource as part of this community, so that you don't need to wait for a call to ask a question. You can hop into the Career Clarity community, which is essentially like a Facebook group without being on Facebook, and ask your questions there. And I'm going to be there answering your questions right there. And then the last thing I'll share here too is that we also have templates. So for your resumes, your cover letters, if that's top of mind for you, all of that is included here. So you can plug and play with your resume, with coaching, with help there to get your resume, your LinkedIn, your cover letters ready to go. You're going to have templates and support to make that happen. You can make this easy. So Candace has shared in the chat there, the link. I'll send it via email as well. But you can get started with all of this for $97. And so there's 2 different payment plan options that you'll see. One is a pay in 6 option, one is pay in full. But with either one, you get access to the same amazing stuff, the framework, the workbook that you can work through all of these exercises with, the group coaching calls, the online community, the templates, all included in both, just 2 different ways to get started and join us. So as just a reminder, this is an investment in you, right? You invest in your kids all the time. This is an investment in you, and it's an investment that's going to more than pay for itself when you think about it, with your new salary, with your flexibility, and overall just your happiness. And I truly believe investing in yourself is an important gift for yourself, but also for your family, and how that's going to impact all of your lives together. And I know that we're at our time here, so I'm just going to whip through these. We just have a couple quick stories from Trisha, who really found career clarity through this process, able to rebrand herself. That was really key for Trisha. And for Leslie, it was a lot around just finding clarity about what she wanted from a company culture and the skills that she wanted to use. And like Leslie said, it was worth every penny to be able to make this investment and find more happiness for herself, for her 3 girls, for her husband, together as a unit to have that job that fit their lives. So here is the link Candace shared with you as well to join with the Career Clarity Program. And I'm going to open this up to questions. If you're able to stick around and you have questions, I'll bring Candace back up on the screen here as well. But I do want to give you a little bonus too, because that you are here and watching this, this training live. So if you want to get started and you're like, you know what, Becca, I'm in, let's do this. You can join, if you join within the next 15 minutes, you're going to have that link there to add a bonus one-to-one coaching call. To get $100 off that bonus one-to-one coaching call. That's the extra bonus here for you, for Mom at Law program or Mom at Law community members. If you'd like to have that extra support, that's an option that I'm putting out there for you. So let me bring Candace back up and let's see here. So I think, oh, there she is. Hello, Candace. Yeah, so I know we are officially at our time right now, but if folks had questions and wanted to get them answered, I wanted to be here for them to do that. So I don't know if Candace, if you've seen questions that have come through.
Yeah, there's been some comments. That's many questions so far, but Ellen mentioned sometimes like the answer always seems to be networking, but sometimes I can feel really disingenuous. And that was earlier in the call, so maybe that was addressed or during your presentation a little bit. But if not, do you have anything else to add about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I get it that people will say like networking seems to be the answer, but I don't want to. And I get it. I don't want to walk into a networking event either with a little plate of cheese and feel like awkward and like how I'm talking to people. That feels disingenuous to me. However, one-to-one targeted conversations with people, that's more around like building relationships and asking them about themselves and their journey. That's not the icky networking that we think about. That's not you walking in saying, hey, give me a job. It's you walking in and saying, tell me more about your path. Tell me more about what has made you successful in this role. What are some specific questions you can ask based on your career criteria that are related to them and their journey? When you ask people about them and treat it as a relationship rather than transactional, that's when the magic starts happening. And when you have your pitch in your back pocket to be able to share that with them as well, then it all comes together. So it doesn't have to be the awkward networking event. It can be a really targeted, focused, authentic conversation. And all those folks that I showed you earlier and what they did, that's exactly how they approach this. Not one of them went to a big networking event. It was all specific asks, introductions, ways to tap into their network. And we talk about that in the program about how you can use your existing network and build upon it to find and build these relationships.
I don't see any additional questions coming in at the moment.
Okay, good. Yeah,
you answered everything.
Yeah, if folks do, I mean, definitely let me know. Let us know in the Q&A. Something that some people do ask that this question might be on people's mind is, I think I saw a hand just raised there too.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see if we can answer that question here. I'll try to find how we can let folks raise their hand. People ask about the size of the group, and again,
there we go. I'm sorry. I just saw something in the Q&A.
Oh, good. Okay.
It says any follow-up comments from Candace that may specifically relate to practicing lawyers looking to switch careers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Candace, dive in.
Sure. And so I will say that this is something Becca has experience with as well. But yeah, I would say that everything Becca has mentioned does also apply specifically to lawyers. And I think one thing lawyers really worry about is when you have a law degree, you may be concerned regarding how that will be perceived, right? Because it is such it's up there, like in terms of like the education you have, and it's so specialized, and it can feel really difficult to kind of step away from that when all you've ever known is being a lawyer, and when all you've ever known is having this training that is kind of like overseeing all other all other industries. So it's like, how do I get away from this role of, like oversight and actually start doing, in something else? And I will say that everything Becca has said today can, still applies to attorneys, very much so. Even, several years ago when I was kind of looking for the next steps on the Mama Law, I personally worked with Becca, and she was really great with that as well. And, from that, some of the career coaching I did was born. But I will say, your role as a lawyer, like as Becca mentioned, sales, perhaps you've done consultations, maybe you're like a rainmaker, like all of that can transfer to whatever you're seeking next. And, truthfully, you may need to start exploring some of your interests while you're still practicing. For example, I started freelance writing, while I was still an associate working full time. And that's something that I parlayed into my next endeavor. So I think keeping your eye out open for opportunities, as Becca shared, like so much of her framework speaks to this, like knowing what your passions are and your skills, and then that value add is so important. So I'd say that's what I have to say about this, but I'm sure Becca has some great thoughts to contribute as well to that.
Yeah, Candace, I love that. Thank you for sharing your experience with this. I'm thinking of another lawyer who I worked with through the same framework too, who was looking to make a change from litigation into nothing related to law. Didn't want to be a lawyer anymore, and which is totally fine. She had 2 little kids, and just like she wasn't loving the work anymore. So what we figured out what she actually did want to do, and it was more around the putting together, like create the process that she was creating with her clients. And she was working with like big clients, and there's a lot of like corporate law that she was doing, but creating a process to make things run more smoothly for that process. That's what she really loved doing. So we started to make a shift in terms of using that skill set, how that could relate to the fashion industry. So she was making a big change here. The fashion industry that she loved, she was just had a personal passion and family history of. And what she did is started to okay, I don't think I have any connections in this area, but we dove into it. We found that she actually had like 4 or 5 people a couple people she went to law school with, had made a big change. Some people had actually like a sister-in-law's friend that she could be connected with. We found some people, and she ended up relatively quickly being brought into informational interviews and getting really great feedback about how she could kind of tailor her experience. And so she's moving right along in this process of making a big shift from being a litigator to working in an operations role within fashion. So big changes can definitely be possible.
It's possible for sure. And it really is about tailoring, right? Like you're going to have to find a way to tell your story in a way that makes sense for the role you're looking for. And
absolutely.
It's great at that.
Yeah.
We do have it's a comment, I would say, more than anything else, from Tara. She said, great presentation, you're speaking her language. She's really interested in flexibility, remote work. Her current role doesn't work for her. So, and maybe this is, maybe Tara will be working with you shortly.
Yeah, and Tara, I'd love to work with. I think that resonates with me and all the conversations that I have weekly with people who are in this program, that their current roles are not working for their lives right now. And instead of saying like, okay, well, I'm just going to hope it gets better, because we can hope that it gets better, or you can take some targeted action towards it. And I'll tell you, Candace knows this about me too, that I'm not just going to be telling you that like this is the way to go if I didn't know that this was the right way to go. Like this framework is something that I've seen work for people, and in finding that new role and getting clarity around what they actually want next and being able to effectively pitch themselves. So if you're looking at this framework and be like, oh, I don't know, it really does work. I've seen people make these big changes. The examples that I shared with you are just a handful. But Tara, I hear you, that your life has changed. You want more flexible and fulfilling work, and it's out there. We just need to figure out what exactly that looks like for you.
Yes, I think having clarity is such a like a new thing for people. I think so many times we're so caught up in the day-to-day of our jobs and our families that actually having that clarity is such a new thing. And to even realize that you can formulate a different picture it's like a revelation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think hopefully I think you've definitely touched people, touched people in this where they've needed to be, reached, because I think this is such an important issue. And oh, hey, Leah's commenting, Leah Fierro.
Hi, Leah. Hi.
She says, great presentation. A lot of this resonated with me, and she appreciates the opportunity to listen. And congrats to us both. Oh, thank you.
Leah's the best. Hi, Leah. Yeah, I'm just so glad to have you all here and listening through this, and whatever stage you're in right now. And we have people who are going through the program who are returning to the paid workforce after some time away from the paid workforce and figuring out what's next. It's been amazing for them to be able to identify those what they want to do next, because it's a big question. But for some folks also who have not made a change in their career in many years and are now just coming up for air a little bit. And so several people in the program have been at these inflection points, right, where their kids are starting to get a little bit more independent. So it's actually created more space for them to think about what it is they want to do. Or some folks who have kids who've actually just gone to college, actually too. And that's created new space for them. So everyone's at an inflection point, I'd say, and realizing how important the clarity piece of it is. I could come on here and tell you, like, let's talk about your resume. Let's just clean up your resume. But I think that would be doing you all a disservice if that's where we went for this, because while the clarity stuff at first might seem not as actionable, it's actually the most important foundation of this, because you're going to be so much more comfortable and confident in those networking conversations. They don't have to be awkward. If you know what you're looking for and you know what to ask, your resume, you can just feel really strong about, yeah, this is exactly me. And it's speaking the language of my ideal employer. You're going to have the tools in order to open up those doors to those houses that don't stink. So hopefully that resonated with you all too.
I like that.
I know it's been a favorite for people before, but like, oh yeah, I get that.
It's a lot of stinky houses out there, honestly. So
It
pays to do the work up front to avoid them.
There's a lot of stinky houses, but more and more there's better smelling, Febrezed houses, if you will, more well cleaned houses. Because people are realizing and they're advocating for what they need too. So that goes back to the career criteria point too, right? What do you need? How are you asking for it? How are you advocating for it even before you move into a new role? Sometimes people think that sounds pushy. It's not. It's just you asking for what you want. And if more people are asking for what they want, more companies are going to start realizing this is an important thing to offer. We have control here. My friends, over how we are shifting how we're shifting the job market. Do you think these companies just decided one day that they're going to offer more hybrid and flexible work? And COVID certainly became a huge factor in this, but they didn't keep it just like for fun. They kept it because it was retaining good employees, and they were hearing it, advocating from people that this is what they needed. Same thing with strong parental leave policies, flexible work arrangements in terms of hours, meeting free time. These are all factors of flexibility that people have advocated for, and you can be part of that, making that change.
Yeah. And I think coming from a place of clarity and confidence can only help you, having that firm ground to stand on and knowing who you are and what you want. That's the way there.
Exactly. I know we're at our last couple minutes. Thank you for the folks who stuck around here too to listen to the Q&A. I know we went over our time, and your time is very precious. But we got a roll here as we were talking.
Yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I hope everyone else is too.
Yeah, I hope this was fun. I try to make this fun too. I think that's something I should add, is that the person that you're seeing right here talking to you, this is Candace knows, this is me. This is how I talk. I'm not going to try to be super buttoned up for you. I think that we're all moms and or dads or parents, and we have a lot going on, so we don't need to make this stuffy and boring. We can make it more engaging and something that you're going to look forward to doing when you have 15 minutes to do. Like, yeah, like this sounds something like will actually be engaging for me. I'll learn something. It's going to move me forward, but it's not going to be someone being like, and here is how we do this next. We're going to make it a little more fun.
Yeah, it'll be a highlight for you. And I think
Yes.
it's something you don't get to do very often, be introspective and work with someone awesome like Becca.
That's what people have said. And like they'll say, like, not just working, I don't want to sound cocky with that, but like it's a
It's
highlight
true
to come,
though, it's true.
a highlight to come to the group calls, to like be surrounded by this community of people. When they see the group call come up on their calendar, they're like, yeah, like that sounds like a great way for me to spend my time. Because it's just, yeah, it's a way to feel connected to other people and get my questions answered.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, here, I'll just stop the share here so we can just be our faces. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, for, oh, now I can see the chat. It's because I was sharing my screen.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, okay, now I'll go back and read the chat after. But for those of of you who weren't able to join live, we're going to be sending out a recording that's going to be coming to your inbox within the next 24 hours. So if you had to jump off early, you can see us here now. And for those of us who are joining in the replay, definitely let us know if you have questions here too, and you weren't able to get your questions answered live.
Yes, and thank you for joining. Thank you all from my community for coming, for trusting Becca, and for sticking around. We appreciate it so much.
Yes, we certainly do. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Mom at Lars. Is that what you call them, Mom at Lars?
I will now.
And I look forward to being in touch with many of you very soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.